Hello everyone. So ever since the big retro gaming craze on YouTube over the past decade or so, with channels like AVGN or Classic Game Room, I would say the term hidden gem has gradually lost its meaning, where maybe in the year 2010 you could get away with calling something like Chrono Trigger or The Secret of Mana a hidden gem, maybe even something like Higane. Whereas now I think most retro games of any note, at least on the sort of mainstream consoles, have been fully explored and fully dissected on many different gaming YouTube channels over the years because, I mean, you got to get the content out there, right? And so, ever since then, I do think the term hidden gem is a bit overused. But in today's case, I think it is absolutely appropriate because I doubt many of you have heard of this game before, especially the non-shmup fans out there. But yet, I think it is absolutely quality and worth your time. And so I'd like to present today Ring 27, or Ring to the power of 27. I'm not sure how the math pronunciation works on that. But in any case, I would also like to deem it the Unofficial Star Fox Shmup because in terms of graphics, in terms of style, I think Star Fox might have been an influence. I mean, you are flying an R-Wing after all, and the backgrounds and the stage design and the overall sort of lo-fi polygon feel of it makes me think that maybe this was intended as sort of an homage to Star Fox. Also, the name Ring 27. Rings are kind of a big deal in Star Fox. All circumstantial evidence, I know. Perhaps I could do more investigation, except the main page for this game is in Japanese, and I have no idea what it says, and this game is very mysterious. It is very hidden gemish in that there's not a whole lot of information about it or out there, not a lot of discussion, not even a lot of videos of the game. This will probably be one of the few videos of the game you'll be able to find on YouTube, which is kind of interesting and cool in a way. There's so much to talk about here. I remember back when I did my greatest indie shmups of the year 2010, I actually did include this game in that video. I'm not sure if I made a promise to make a full-on review of it. I'm sure I probably talked about it a little bit. It has been on my agenda for quite a while, but I felt like now is the time to bring it out while the iron is hot, while I feel like I have much to say about it. And so definitely check this game out, first of all, because you're not going to regret it. It really isn't all that expensive. So let's talk about what sets this game apart, what caught my eye about it. The first thing is, of course, the graphical presentation. You gotta talk about the graphics. I think this is going to be one of the hallmarks of this game. Not only is the gameplay great, but I am a big sucker for this style of graphics. I've talked about this in a few other videos, I think, where I'm a big fan of lo-fi, poly, somewhere in between 16-bit and PS1 style graphics, like the original Star Fox, or like G Darius or something. All these types of games, I'm a huge sucker for the style. I'm not sure why I'm really partial to razor sharp polygon graphics or lo-fi polygon graphics, but I certainly am. I like them a lot, and in fact, when I compare this graphical style to a lot of the shmups that are coming out now that would be considered remasters or that sort of thing, I personally would much prefer this sort of style rather than the, what I like to call the Unity generic Pixar-ish looking games with the sort of soft edges and plain textures. When you look at the graphical presentation of this game, I think some people might not give it the time of day because of the sort of lo-fi nature of it. But when you take a step back and look at how well the graphics are put together, how polished the presentation is, I think you definitely have to give the game props. And I think Ring 27 will be a classic example of a game that is lo-fi but really high quality graphics. I think this is something I've been trying to express in my videos when it comes to graphical presentation, where it's not necessarily just about, oh, can you draw really pretty sprite art or sprite animations, but also how you put the sprites together, how you sort of flow the animations together, how rich the backgrounds look. Ring 27 has this really going on, and what I think really separates it from a lot of the indie releases that you see, even ones that I like, such as Rolling Gunner, is that this feels like a polished studio game of the past. It feels genuinely retro in a way that a lot of indie games just aren't able to pull off. Where if you told me that this was on the cutting room floor of a studio like Nintendo, or, well, not Nintendo, it's a little too cool for Nintendo, but I don't know, a studio of some kind of the past, maybe Konami or Capcom, it was on the cutting room floor and they just couldn't ever bring it out to the SNES or to the PS1 or maybe a console that was never ever fully developed, I would believe it. There's something about this game that is genuinely retro and polished, and it feels like it's got this masterful touch, and I really wonder What became of this dude? Did he create any other games? I'll probably have to do some investigation after this video to find out. But just look at the graphics on the screen with the backgrounds, sprites flying around in the background, the really detailed animations of the enemy ships. This isn't like a Battle Traverse or Rolling Gunner where you have like flying PNG files. No, they fully animated and really gave this game a lot of character. And if this is not going to win you over, I don't know what will. Maybe our tastes don't align, but I'm a huge sucker for this style of presentation, and it's really what stood out to me. But that's not the only thing Ring 27 has going on for it. As far as actual gameplay, this game is really great and a lot of fun, and I think it's going to appeal to a lot of different fans out there, where it sort of rides the line between being a bullet hell and sort of a caravan style shmup. It probably is a little bit more on the bullet hell side of things, but for some reason it doesn't feel like a cave game, or it doesn't feel like a Toho. It just feels like maybe a Garega style game, but they just added more bullets, a Raizing-style game. Kind of feels a little bit more along those lines to me, at least. And what's really great about the bullet design of this game is that they're very visually clear, which is quite impressive. It probably doesn't seem that way, but when you have a game with this lo-fi and this sort of a rich of a background and rich animations and everything, it could be pretty easy to lose track of the bullets. But the way they did the bullet design here is where they got that really, really bright white center and then the thick blue outlines, and then they sort of periodically turn red for no reason, probably just to help entertain your eyes a little bit. Really well done. Also, what I like about the bullet design is I love the hitboxes of these bullets, where they're nice and chunky and easy to read. It's just a great relaxing time in a way. And I say relaxing not because the game is easy, because it's not, and it has multiple difficulty modes, but relaxing in a way that, again, it feels a little bit like a Raizing game, where it's just sort of throwing bullet patterns at you. It feels very organic and natural. It doesn't really have any sections that make you want to rip your hair out or make you just scream in the sky. Maybe something like the Hall of Hell in Donanpachi or the elevator in Ketsui. No, nothing like that in this game. All the bullet patterns are just sort of nice and easy going. They're challenging, but in a way that's fun. It's hard to quite articulate, but you'll see if you check it out. Also, the hitboxes on the bullets seem very fair and well balanced. You're not going to run into any strange hitboxes like you do sometimes in Toho or Cave, where there's like a big fat back hitbox that you can't see, or you're getting clipped by things. Also, the hitbox of the player ship is satisfyingly small. It's a little bit smaller than what you'll see in something like Donanpachi, maybe a little bit more along those lines of Ketsui perhaps. And the ship movement and aspect ratio is also something I want to comment on, because it's very interesting. So the trend of making vertical shmups in horizontal aspect ratios, vertizontals I guess people call them, is really growing. You're seeing a lot more games along these lines, mostly because, you know, modern monitors are just more conducive to this for a lot of people. I feel like this aspect ratio, which is like a perfect square, it's like 4x4 or whatever you'd call it, is really interesting because it also sort of reminds me of a handheld in a way. It feels like, was this meant to be on a Game Boy Color or something? I mean, it wasn't, but as far as aesthetics and style, it is a straight up square aspect ratio. I don't think I've seen many shmups like this before. What's kind of interesting about it is one problem you have when you get out of the regular 3x4 aspect ratio of vertical shmups is that you start to experience this sort of weird stretch that makes the bullet patterns feel a little bit funky. You have a lot more screen real estate. The way you do the stage design, you have to make certain adjustments, and some games don't quite pull this off. A lot of indie shmups, especially newer ones, don't quite get this concept, and it can be a detriment. But in the case of Ring 27, I think the developer really knew what he was doing, because one way that he really gets around this problem of having too much screen real estate, you know, relative, is make crap bigger. And this is what he does, and I think this accomplishes two things. Not only does it help reduce this issue of too much screen real estate, because he just made things bigger, he just made bullets bigger, he made the player ship bigger, he made the enemy sprites bigger. That's a huge one. Not only does that help reduce the level design issue of just having too much space from side to side, but it also gives a real visceral, exciting feel to the game, because now you're sort of zoomed in on things. You can see the detail of the enemies more. You can blow them up and see big old fat explosions more. And so if you're thinking of playing a shmup and you're playing a vertical, maybe something like a Jamestown, I think this is one issue that these games run into, and something that can be learned from is this example of Ring 27, where you just zoom crap in, make things bigger. I think it works out really well. So that's the first bit about the gameplay, but there's actually quite a bit more to discuss. This game is a small package on the surface, but the more you play, you realize there's actually a lot of content here, because there are different modes in the game and they pretty significantly change how the systems of the game work. So the first mode that you unlock, the default mode, is called Anchor. And so the way this works is you have a regular shot, then you have a concentrated shot like in Toho or Cave, which is really nice. But then also you have your sort of bomb special weapon attack that feels much more along the lines of a Grega Raizing-style rather than a Cave, because it's not a screen clearing bomb. Instead, it works differently depending on the mode, and this directly connects to how the scoring of the game works as well, or the scoring of the mode works. So in Anchor mode, what you do is you launch this tether onto them, and then this activates a sort of hyper mode sort of thing where you have increased firepower and you cancel bullets, and you can also cancel the tether to cancel bullets. But the trade-off is that you raise the rank. And so I would love to see players like Jamers or more super players take a shot at this game, because I think it could be very, very interesting to see some high rank, really intensive score runs, because the game's difficulty ramps up and the presentation ramps up and more bullets appear on screen, and it's just a really cool way to design the game. Again, very reminiscent of something like Raizing. And so that's Anchor mode. But then the next mode that you unlock after you get it clear on Anchor mode is Bomb mode. And this is very interesting. This is a bit more along the lines of a Mars Matrix, perhaps, where the way Bomb works is whenever you kill enemies, they create a bunch of suicide bullets on the screen. However, if you get them sort of lined up like Tetris blocks or something, and then you go ahead and activate your bomb, what you do is you cancel all the bullets and this sort of domino effect. It's really, really fun and satisfying. I think most people are going to have a ton of fun with Bomb mode. And again, it just adds a lot to the variety of the gameplay. So then after Bomb mode, unlock Circle mode. I'm not entirely sure how this mode works. I played around with it a little bit, but basically now your bomb is this force field that comes around you, and I think you're supposed to push the bullets around the screen and cancel them into each other and speed kill enemies that way. I'm not entirely sure how the scoring of this mode works. I do know that the longer you have your circle out, the higher the rank climbs. So once again, it's very well designed in a scoring sense, in that the more you score, the more difficult the game becomes. I'm not sure if deaths reduce the rank or not. I can't quite remember. I tend to play on lower ranks, and I think overall the scoring this game is very underexplored. I've only seen one scoring run of it ever on YouTube, and I was playing a little bit around with the scoring system, but mostly the purpose of this video is just to sort of introduce this game to a larger pool of players, so hopefully more people get into the scoring, and I'd love to see more replays. And this game does have an effective replay system. It's like Toho, where it's per stage rather than per run, but that works pretty well as well. The one issue with the game that sort of grinds my gears, that isn't really that much of an issue, but still, is that its performance is a little bit funky, where you can get slowdown in the game, and I'm not entirely sure if that's optimization or if the game's just that resource intensive heavy. I'm not sure. You're not going to see too much of it in the replay because my computer is a beast, and so it's pretty able to handle even the most laggy, low performing shmups out there. But nonetheless, there will come a time, especially in Bomb mode, where you're doing all these screen clears and cancels, where you can get a bunch of slowdown. And I'm not entirely sure if that's hardware based or if that's built into the game or not. It feels sort of hardware based, to be honest, but you never know. This game has a lot going on for it as far as the weapon selection as well. So when you go in to select your mode, you have this massive list of weapons subtypes you can choose from, and it is one of the largest variety of in-game weapons I have ever seen in a shmup. I think the one thing about them that is a little bit disappointing is that some of them are very similar to each other, like the fire shot and the ice shot that's just red or blue, and I think they have slightly different effects, but it's not radically different. But still, the overall range of weapons that you have access in the game that are significantly different. I think the best is either the strong or the wide. I'd love to see a sort of tier list of these if more people started to play them. But also the long laser is really good and also really fun. And what's kind of cool is that whenever you lock on to enemies, you end up switching into a different weapon type. So if you have the shot weapon, and then or the wide shot, and you go ahead and lock onto the enemy, then you activate the lasers. And then if you have the lasers and you lock onto the enemy, then you activate a wide shot of some sort. So it's pretty cool as far as playing with what weapons work the best. And I'm guessing that wide shot or strong are probably the strongest. I think long laser is up there as well. There's some weapons in there in the game that are fun, but I don't think are all that powerful, like a sword, which is this really low range concentrated shot that does a ton of damage. But the thing about it is that the range is just so low that it is very difficult to use, but it is a cool concept, and I would love to see people get clears with this weapon. So overall, I absolutely recommend you check out Ring 27, especially if you're itching for some kind of lost Star Fox style shmup. I do think it is kind of sad and kind of curious that of all the game genres Nintendo dipped their toes into, and they pretty much dipped their toes into all of them, they never did end up making a shmup, really. The closest you get that I am aware of is like Mario Land on the Game Boy, where you have the shmup stages and that, which are pretty fun actually. And I would love to see someone ROM hack that at some point in the future. But as far as a standalone shmup made by Nintendo, I'm not aware of one, but I think this might be the closest you're gonna get as far as Star Fox is concerned. So yeah, thanks so much. I'd like to end this video by thanking my patrons, and I do hope you all check it out. It is PC only, of course, and I'll have a link to buy it in the video description. Adios. So thank you to 72 PCT Water, Adam Pearson, Adrian Reyes, Ukshay Wadker, Dingo, Andy Cap, Another Joe, Anthony A, Ben Wynn, Borgate22, Brian Reboot, Brian Shiver, Corio, Danielle Savage, Delta Tango 6, Disco Stas Leia, Dominic NG, Eric H, Full Set, Retro Shmupper, Geriatric Donmaku, Hausu, Ilya, Kiwi, JLab, JB RPG, Joe Angelo, Gameboy Guru, K, K2, Kikoman 589, Larridge, Malaise, Mark Toms, Maz, Meher Calendrian, Minong, Queen Charlene, Nathaniel Davis, and Electron, Neon Dagger Games, Okla Kugels, Philip Mason, Portal 63, Raul, Real Skeen, Sketcher Raccoon, SLW, The Boot Rex, TRM, Sugumo, Yishi, Plasmo, and Utakaya. Thanks for watching.